We came, we saw, we kicked it.
Ghostbusters hit the big screen in 1984, and 40 years later, it's still as popular as ever. Here are some fun facts about the ghost and special effects that you may not know.
The 1984 Ghostbusters heavily relied on practical effects, which were innovative for its time. The film's special effects team used a combination of puppetry, animatronics, and controlled explosions to bring the ghosts and spectral phenomena to life, creating a sense of realism and tangibility that CGI effects often struggle to replicate. The film also made extensive use of optical effects for ghostly apparitions and the streams from the proton packs. These effects were created by filming physical models or animations against black backgrounds that required precise alignment and exposure to blend seamlessly with the on-set performances. So what did you guys think about the special effects?
You know, for 1984, not using CGI, it was pretty impressive how they were able to get that done on such a small budget. I mean, it was a big budget movie, but they didn't have a special effects house to go to. They were all busy making movies, so they had to basically start one up from the ground up just to get this done.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, they still stand up today. Yeah, they look a little bit cheesy, but it's a cheesy movie. I think they were going for that. They didn't want super realistic. Yeah. I mean, even if you watch the last Ghostbusters, Afterlife, the ghosts were very similar. I mean, it was just like, that works. Let's keep it.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were using CGI in the more modern ones, but they still made the ghosts look like they did in the original because they hold up.
Yeah.
It looks good.
Very cartoonish, but it worked. So like the Marshmallow Man, they had to use 18 suits, and they ended up burning 17 of them for the film. The marshmallows that fall on everybody with shaving cream, and they wanted 150 pounds of shaving cream, but they found that when the stuntman stood underneath it to test it, it was way too heavy and it knocked him over. So they cut that down to 75 pounds. And the library ghost, I guess, at the beginning of the movie was considered way too scary. So they changed it, and then they ended up taking that ghost, and it was used in the movie Fright Night. So if you've seen Fright Night, and that's what the ghost was supposed to look like. So
I'm gonna have to watch that again.
Yeah. Actually, if you look over here, there's probably a picture of what the original library ghost was supposed to look like. And for a 1984 PG film, it was a little bit rough. So
pretty intense.
They cut that out.
Yeah.
So did they use the controlled explosions for the Marshmallow Man? Is that how those suits burned up?
I don't know if it was that or probably for when they crossed the streams and blew up the platform.
If you remember when they cross the streams at the end of the movie, you know, there is that explosion from the door that swings both ways. And you see the Marshmallow Man sitting there like, oh, you know, scared face. And then he's just melting away. I mean, that's that's what they did. The suit sitting there with the scared face and then just take a blowtorch to it. And it's amazing what you can do practically with just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and just filmed right. You know, it still works. I mean, you can see a little bit of green screen here and there when they're throughout the movie, but that doesn't bother me a bit. It still holds up.
The most popular ghost in the film Ghostbusters is perhaps that disgusting blob Slimer, originally named Onion Head due to the puppet's foul smell. He's classified as a focused non-terminal repeating phantasm or a class 5 free-roaming vapor, a real nasty one too. Slimer was designed by Steve Johnson and modeled the ghost after comedian John Belushi upon Dan Aykroyd's request. The full-size puppet was then worn by Mark Wilson in the film. So Slimer's original name was Onion Head. He actually didn't get that name until the 1986 cartoon The Real Ghostbusters. That's where his Slimer came from, yeah.
Not even in the movie, huh?
They didn't refer to him other than that free-form Class 5 vapor. What's interesting about him is the guy who designed him, Steve Johnson, was asked by Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd to make him resemble John Belushi's character in Animal House, Bluto, just a slob of a guy. And apparently he was up working on this and he could not get the design right. So one night he was stayed up late. He did 3 grams of cocaine and he finished the puppet that night and returned it in the next day. So when they filmed him, he was in a suit. It was a guy wearing a suit filmed up against the black screen, kind of like what they did with the other things. And he just kind of ran around and they had 20 cables running to help control the mouth, the face, the eyes, and all of that things. But Slimer is, I think, probably, other than the Marshmallow Man, probably the most popular ghost.
I mean, yeah,
I mean, he was on everything.
I never got that though. It kind of bugged me when I was a kid. I was probably 10 when the cartoon came out, the real Ghostbusters, and it was like, why do they have a ghost running around with? He was a bad ghost in the first one. He was causing damage. Why? And it's just like,
Now he's the
I thought he was
have
going to be a
the
bigger part of the
Marshmallow Man.
movie.
yeah, he was. I mean, he was the first ghost caught and everything, but it was just kind of a look what we can do. But somehow the ghost became the most popular part of that. And I just remember as a kid, I watched the real Ghostbusters. I loved it, but I never understood or liked that Slimer was a part of that.
You know, the
kinda
ghost
weird.
that stuck out to me the most was actually the library ghost. You know, the old lady reading. And that one was almost borderline creepy rather than campy like the rest of the ghosts. And maybe that's part of what I liked about it. But that one was more memorable to me from childhood than Slimer.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters features some fascinating spiritual material. For example, the main baddie, the god Gozer. While Gozer is a fictional creation of this film, the writers did draw on some actual lore from Babylonian material, the Old Testament, and Dead Sea Scrolls. Ray says Gozer was said to have been worshipped by the Hittites, Mesopotamians, and Sumerians, the area of the world where demons were believed to have been born. This is where the movie is surprisingly accurate. Ancient people believed in a hierarchy of spirits. A Hebrew person living in the Old Testament period would place God at the top of the totem pole. Gozer would have been on the next tier down, but unlike people today, they would not have thought of Gozer as a demon. Instead, they would have called her a god, like with a lowercase g, a rebelling angel. Even lower than that were demons. Over in Homer's Greek writings, the gods would sometimes use demons to do their dirty work. In the film, the demon Zool is the minion of Gozer, tasked with opening a gateway to the spiritual realm. In the mysterious Book of Enoch, and even in the New Testament, demons were thought to roam the earth, looking for a new body to inhabit. This likely inspired the possessions of Dana Barrett and Louis Tully, who then opened the gateway for Gozer to cross over. Finally, the film draws inspiration from the last book of the Bible, Revelation. Here, the writers of the film got a little more creative. Ray quotes Revelation 6:12, a passage about Judgment Day, describing the sun turning black and the moon turning to blood. The verse that follows says the stars will fall from the sky. In ancient thinking, the stars were a metaphor for the gods, angels who became corrupt. So technically, that passage is about God judging evil angels like Gozer. But that doesn't exactly work for a Ghostbusters plot, so the film creatively changed the interpretation to an evil angel judging humans. If they hadn't, we would never know the horror of the giant Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
I did some research on this as well, just because I love the movie. And everywhere I kept looking was like, Gozer was made up. Gozer is nothing. And that's kind of what I came to the conclusion of, was like, okay, they just kind of made stuff up and it just happened to work. But of course, Nathan, being the theological nerd, he knows so much that he saw what they were doing, and they may have made up the names, but they were kind of following the Mesopotamians, Sumerians, the Hittites. They did go deep into this, and it makes sense because I know Dan Aykroyd's a very spiritual, believable, he's big believer of cryptids, aliens, spirits, he is all into that. And he does just constantly research, which makes this character perfect for him, because that's who Dan Aykroyd is. Ray Stantz is Dan Aykroyd. It's not the other way around. He just searches these crazy things. And, if he wasn't an actor, Dan Aykroyd would probably own a bookstore in New York selling all these weird items that he does in part 2. And it looks like in Afterlife, he was there too. So, it's kind of cool. And knowing that he has that knowledge, he can put it into the movie like that.
Yeah, even though they were made up, they tried to tie in directly to Sumerian and Babylonian theology, because they made Gozer the sister of the Babylonian god Tiamat. And the Sumerians worshipped Tiamat as well, or had her in their lore. So they tied into a real god from real mythology and didn't totally make up the entire lore, you know?
Right.
It's like historical fiction.
Yeah. So in reality, if you go full on in, then Ghostbusters is a part of the MCU.
Yeah, Eternals had Tiamat too.
We're just going to have a mashup, Marvel versus Ghostbusters.
Might as well.
That's the ending. That's the cuts at the end scene of Ghostbusters is all the Avengers show up.
Hey, Batman hooked up with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so anything's possible.
I have that movie.
Of course you do.